So welcome to our panel. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Dear audience, when you think about healthcare, you might also know that the healthcare industry is not known for being the most innovative or the fastest when it comes to adapting innovation. Additionally, there are a lot of regulations and there are a lot of different players with different needs in the market. Today on our panel, that's really nice that we have not only startups, no, we also have a representative from a bigger other player in the healthcare industry with us. So on the other hand, when it comes to healthcare, what is also really important that most of us, at least me maybe, and you as well in the audience, when you think about health, you think about your individual health or the health of your family members maybe. But of course, also companies are interested in good health of their employees and everything that comes with it. And Gregory, you with Grape, you are working in this field. Can you explain us a little bit more what Grape is doing?
100%, yeah. So I'll do the intro a little bit differently, but I think it will set us up for the discussion. So basically at Grape, for the past 2-3 years since we started, we have been focusing on building an insurance company to now really rethink the whole processes around health at the workplace and absence management with our software and the technology and the data we are leveraging to then connect to our mission to transform health at the workplace. So it's a long-phased approach and we're in the middle of it, yeah.
And another company that might be interested in this aspect of healthcare is Swiss Life. But this might seem a little bit strange to you in the audience and to me as well, because I know Swiss Life mainly as a pension provider or financial solution provider. But you, Philip, you are Chief Medical Officer at Swiss Life. Can you explain us what you do in your job and why this aspect of healthcare is important to Swiss Life?
Yes, thank you very much for having me on this panel. Swiss Life is a life insurer and occupational pension insurer, and therefore mainly active in the second and third pillar of our pension system in Switzerland. And personally, I'm involved in the health risk assessment for individuals or companies. And when it comes to a claim, then I'm involved in the claims management. So what it's important to have a good overview over the healthcare system, over public health situation, over global health trends and risks, including new technology, like AI.
Talking about technologies, our title is How Tech is Changing Healthcare for Good. What kind of technologies are you looking at?
So I like this title very much because it's focusing on the positive changes we can have or with impact also on the insurance business. So first of all, I think on the structural level, I see there are a lot of benefits through new technology like AI. So to have a better quality of data, to have connected platforms, and just for an example, telemedicine or remote care or electronic health records. So our Swiss Federal Council yesterday decided on a new positioning of electronic health records. And that would be a benefit also for us as insurance. Second, maybe I see benefits in diagnostics. So we almost have progress in diagnostics, in radiology, in pathology, in dermatology, in every field of medicine. And for that, I think we see a new biometrics maybe coming up, liquid biopsies, multiple cancer early detection tests, and maybe our voice seems to be an excellent health predictor and predictor for longevity. So we'll face new biometrics, and Swiss Life has a very long tradition, 160 years in health prediction, and we monitor quite exactly what's going on in the health system.
And you were talking about diagnostic, and this leads us to Tim. Tim, at Aeon, you are offering a technology which gives us a better picture in our inside. It's a full body MRI scan that you're offering. How did that idea come to your mind, or why did you found this company?
Yeah, I think the idea is a little bit broader than just offering a whole body MRI scan, because in general, I'm a big believer that the healthcare system needs to change away from a reactive more towards a proactive system. And in order to achieve that, I think it's like super important to enable every individual to take ownership of their health, and in order to enable someone to make database decisions, I think diagnostics are super important. And what we do at Aeon is that we use cutting edge technology, for example MRI scans, but also like blood analytic and genetic analytics, and combine them through AI to really have very unique and precise insights in your overall whole body health, which allows us to detect disease very early, and also detect certain disease risk patterns, which eventually will allow us to also predict diseases.
And what kind of diseases? Can you specify this?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's like a very long list. So we screen for over like 500 diseases, but in the end, we focus on the diseases that are like most common and eventually will also like cost our lives with the highest likelihood. So we focus on cancer, cardiovascular diseases, metabolic diseases, and neurodegenerative diseases, in particular Alzheimer's, because these are the ones that are like most common, and yeah, also like develop over a very long period of time. So you have actually enough time to prevent them from happening.
But Philip, maybe that would be the perfect match to work with Aeon for your risk analysis.
Well,
let's make a matchmaking here on stage.
As I said, we monitor the new biometrics, and I'm quite critical against whole body MRIs for a screening method for large population. On an individual basis, yes, it could be a benefit, but I think there are additional costs rising up. So if you have a whole body MRI, you see maybe 20 abnormalities or maybe findings. You have to see what is relevant with it. Is there clinical evidence? Is there a treatment for that, what I can see in a very early stage? And but maybe not yet, but there will be discussion on it. And for right now, for us as a life insurer, it would be too expensive. Right now, you have to combine it with other tests, genetic tests. And I see there may be issues, regulatory issues. So we mustn't use genetic data for life insurance and under certain conditions. So we are not allowed to. So we have a tight regulatory framework.
So you see, I'm not a good matchmaker here, definitely not. But of course, what we really can say is that this is a great tool for prevention. And prevention is a topic that is interesting for all the three of you. And Gregory, I know that at Grape you have a very interesting idea of how you can use the data that you're collecting for prevention. Can you explain this to the crowd?
Sure. And first of all, like, it's always scary or people are usually scared if they hear like, my insurer, right, is kind of getting my data, right? I mean, you also touched on it, Philip, right? There's also a regulatory aspect. It's important, like, to a large extent, so far, we're only working with the data that the insurers would anyway receive. So we're working now massively with like time tracking data. So it's like absences, like when are people actually like working, are they off work, with the patterns around that. And we are thinking about how we can extend that, but it is a bit difficult from a regulatory and also moral point of view. However, what we also realize is in some aspects, we don't even need to know, kind of have all of the data, right? Like it's then more the question of how can we maybe enable or like also finance certain methods, right? For example, we haven't thought about screenings, right? But how I would think about it is how could we maybe lower the barrier for those screenings, like maybe have more of a matchmaking, like offer as an options to employees, or maybe co-finance it with the employer who's also very interested. However, what the outcome then is not necessarily a data we need to collect. And so far we're focusing mainly on the data we are allowed to have, that the insurers already have, but we collect them like more structured, and we collect them earlier. So we're using integrations into the systems of those companies who are insured with us. So we have integrations into their ERP system, HR systems, like time tracking systems. So we get all the employee information, salary data, we get time tracking data. This is all information that the insurer would anyway receive because they need it to process a claim. But we get it structured, we can automate the process, and we get it early. And even before it is kind of a long-term claim that would end up with the insurer, sometimes as early signals. And that's currently what we're focusing on, to kind of have more those early, or like an early radar, early warning signal before it actually is a claim. Yeah.
And prevention is, of course, a lot about chronic diseases, but part of these chronic diseases, as you're trying to track also with your MRE scans, are also mental health issues. And I know that you're working with EPSI, for example, and also at Swiss Life. You're focusing on this topic as part of the occupational health management. This is in German, das betriebliche Gesundheitsmanagement. And I found an interview with you where you had a very nice quote, I think. You said that lack of appreciation in a workplace increases a risk to mental health issues. Can you explain this to us?
Yes, of course. I think prevention, we know all the ingredients of a good prevention, and the workplace finally can be a very good source of health, but it can be also the opposite, a source of long-term sickness. And I appreciate your idea to go into the data, earlier signs, for a better prediction of maybe health risks. And yes, we all know the ingredients. Move, eat healthy, avoid ultra-processed food, sleep enough, avoid chronic stress in a way, and just work in an environment that is based on trust, on appreciation, on compassion, or simple in a friendly environment. And then do a work that inspires you, that gives you autonomy, and that makes sense in your life. So that's cheap, that's cost effective, that's efficient, and that should be our baseline.
And a very important learning also for future founders maybe, that appreciation can help to increase the health of your employees that you may be searching for. Next to prevention, a topic that is important to all of you is the topic of how to collaborate with others, because that's often, especially at the beginning of a startup, very important to find partners to work with. And Tim, I know that at Aeon you have to work, or you do work with partners, so maybe you can tell us with what kind of partners, and do you have some challenges to share that you see in these partnerships?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we work with like different kinds of partners, but I think the two interesting ones are like on the one hand health insurance companies, and then also like radiologists that we basically collaborate with to use their MRI capacity, so we don't have any own MRI machines. And when we work with insurance companies, and I think it's the most interesting one, the usual doubts that we hear is the same. Here, yeah, it's too expensive, or yeah, you just create false positives, and then it's like just creating unnecessary costs. But if you actually look at the data, those claims are false, and they're actually based on data that's like 20 years old. And if you look at the newest data, also like our data, our false positive rate basically is 0. So every finding that we have is relevant. We have an average in 11% of the cases a critical medical finding, and this is like something that we confirmed 100%, and then the treatment always was either life-saving or decreasing the treatment cost significantly. And this basically helped us to bring already like 2 insurance companies on board that reimburse our service by up to 80%, depending on the insurance plan. But I think this also like shows the overall problem in the healthcare industry a bit, that traditional players are like overly conservative and also hesitant to adapt new technology, which is, if you look at the newest data and also if you use the newest technology, better than like it has been published over the last 10 years. And also, I think this actually prevents people from living or having access to those preventative medicine, which is, from my perspective, really, really sad, because I mean, we have safe lives, and we have like super happy customers that use our service on a frequent basis. And also, if you look at the overall costs, they're also like going down year by year, because you can also use technology to decrease scanning time for MRIs, for example, which makes them more accessible over time. So I mean, that's the biggest challenge, and that's also like still what we use or leverage when we talk to potential partners.
Philip wants to add something, I can see it, but before we do that, please don't forget to scan the QR code to send in your questions for the Q&A. Philip, please.
I think we should differentiate between health insurers and life and pension insurers. And I see there an issue, why should I share my whole body MRA, this huge data set, with a life insurer and take the risk maybe to pay a higher premium because I have several findings, not so clear what's the evidence of that. For health insurance, maybe that's another point of view. I agree with you. But for life and pension insurance, we have a bit a different view. It has to have an impact on morbidity, on mortality, on long term to better and more precisely predict the health and maybe longevity for our customers.
Maybe when we can come back to the collaborations in general, Gregory, what is your opinion on how to start a collaboration or collaborations in general as a startup?
I mean, collaboration and partnerships is like a wide term, right? But in generally, like I really believe there are certain partnerships, if they're going really deep into what you want to create, that can really hold you back as a startup. So basically, when we came up with our vision for like what we want to build in this space, like how we want to rethink this whole absence management journey with the employee, the employer, and the insurance company, initially we tried to also work with insurance companies. And we met, I think, almost all of them, at least here in Switzerland, also some abroad, because we needed them, right, to get started, because we wanted to build a software basically as a layer on top of their insurance product. But most of them also told us like, it's not possible, or like, don't even try. Some, however, also saw kind of the potential. But one big learning early on was that because we had to really rethink that whole process, and there would have been like deep integrations needed and deep coordinations with those insurance companies, we would have only be able to move as fast as they can move, right? So there, the partnership was so deep that it actually was a risk for us and a huge dependency. And we came to the conclusion, either we are not going to be able to pull this off, kind of build this product, create this product, or maybe just in 10 or 20 years, because that's usually not the speed you like to kind of have as a startup. Or we also need to do the insurance part ourselves, so we need to kind of detach ourselves from partners. And for us, I think it was the only possibility to build Grape, or basically where we are today. And so it worked out. But there, for example, the learning was, we had to limit those partnerships or even like avoid them. So we had to build the insurance company ourselves. We couldn't like partner with them to build what we want to build,
So it's a tricky thing, we can hear it, but as a last word, Philip, maybe here in the room is still a startup who thinks, I want to work with Swiss Life. What should they do?
Yeah, come and talk with us. But you mentioned it initially. So Swiss Life as an insurer, or insurers in general, we are possibly not the main driver of innovation. And that's true. People say, you are conservative, you're a bit old-fashioned also. And just study our business model. Think on that tight frame of regulatory law-based framework where we are in. So there is limited space for innovation and creativity. But still, Swiss Life stands for long-term commitment, long-term guarantees, stability, continuity. That's the other part you have to consider, and we understand that. When you understand that, and you have a very good idea to solve all our problems in insurance industry, then please come and talk to us.
Amazing. So we have a question to Aeon, so to Tim, from our crowd. At Aeon, how do you approach indeterminate findings, not clearly pathological results? And so it has been mentioned. How do you approach this?
Yeah, so I think we use like multiple layers to determine if like a finding is relevant or not. So the first one, you have like this standard process that basically every time happens when you do an MRI scan, which is you have a radiologist looking at the scan and writing a medical report, and they give like their first indication, okay, is this relevant, yes or no? So that's like the first layer. Then we use a software AI layer where we actually use our own data, but also like use data from like big biobanks where you actually have like tens of thousands of MRI images and also like images of findings in healthy individuals, which we then use to also, and they also have like outcome data. So they also know if the finding in the MRI scan was an actual finding or just a false positive, which we then use in our software layer to double check if this finding is relevant, yes or no. And then of course it's also a question of risk. Okay, what could be the potential finding? Is this like something dangerous or something where we would say, okay, please retest in 12 to 24 months? And based on that, we have another doctor looking at it in the end, all the data points, and then making a decision and communicating that to the customer.
So we still have a little bit of time. Let's make a quick round, one after the other. The motto of this year's Startup Nights is Dare to Innovate. When you would have to give a tip to a future founder, potential founder, what would be your tip with this motto in mind? Gregory, please start.
Probably sounds a bit cheesy, but like think big or kind of also chase those big ambitions, because I feel still in Switzerland a lot of companies sometimes think a bit too small. And we also had to think big, right? Like we at the beginning we're also kind of not sure, like, oh, is it too ambitious to even want to capture the whole insurance value chain, like to start an insurance company? When it turned out to be right and to work, it was scary at the beginning, or like we weren't sure if that's going to work out, but I think it was necessary kind of to think big, to be ambitious. Yeah.
And Tim?
Yeah, I would also maybe add to that you should be persistent, because innovation takes time, especially when you're like in a sector like healthcare where everything takes twice as much time as in other industries maybe, and where you have like a lot of old traditional players that are quite hesitant when it comes to adapting new ideas. So I think persistence and also not listening to too many people that say no to your idea, I think is a good idea.
And please, Philip, last word.
Yeah, I think keep that atmosphere of this innovative and, in medical terms, contagious mindset of innovation, and then you are on the right way. And maybe once I will sit here with my own startup and listening to that panel. Thank you.
Hopefully. Big applause for Gregory Inauen from Grape, Tim Seithe from Aeon, and Philipp Strasser from Swiss Life. Thanks a lot for being my guests.